All right, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we share a cup of coffee. And today is going to be a fun episode. You're in for a treat today. Our guest today is Michael Hernandez. He's with Arthur Elliott. It's a marketing agency. And we're going to get into really a deep dive into data and how you can use data through Google or your social platforms or whatever to get the most out of advertising directly to the people that need your services. So we're going to talk a lot about that and how it can be practical applications of advertising and marketing and things that you as small business owners and leaders need to be mindful of. It's going to be a very valuable conversation, so make sure you stick around to the very end where you'll get some great takeaways from Michael. It's all coming up right here on the Coffee Break Podcast. So grab a cup of coffee and join us for the conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. Time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for being here today. We're going to jump into rapid fire. It's a segment that we do 5 randomly selected questions with unknown point values, and we'll score you at the end.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Should be fun. Yesterday, we were recording an episode, and they made 1,000 points. Just FYI. It's a record.
I think I know who was in here, and so I'll have to beat that.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. What band would you be embarrassed to admit that you listen to?
Justin Timberlake.
Really? You would be embarrassed to that? I mean, that's pretty...
I'm embarrassed that I actually like it now.
Yeah.
So no,
he produces good music, though.
Yeah, he does. He does.
I mean, if you're going to say like is In Sync days or something like that, that may be a little awkward.
I don't have. If people would ask me, it's like Robert Johnson, like the blues, and people would be like, "You listen to the blues, like old." So actually, no, I'll take that back. I still like the Partridge Family. David Cassidy.
The Partridge Family.
My sister's favorite band growing up.
There you go. Partridge. That's awesome. All right, number 2. What interesting skill do you want to learn?
Interesting. Oh, actually, I want to learn how to jump out of a plane.
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. I think the skill would be getting over the fear.
Yeah, that'd be something else.
Of hitting the ground. Actually, believe it or not, I'll take that back. I really want to learn how to sing. My whole life, I've always learned. I can't carry a tune.
Yeah.
But my next door neighbor, she is a music teacher and she teaches voice. And she said we can teach pretty much anyone to sing.
That would be an interesting skill to add.
Yes.
Somebody was on a couple of months back. Tanya Lyon was on, and she said that she had learned how to play the piano in the last year.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that one wasn't a randomly selected. Sorry, that was a redo. Anyways, number 3, what are you an expert at?
I think I'm an expert at people, getting to know people.
Okay.
I love to hear people's stories. I love to engage with people. In part-time life, photography, and so you have to have that rapport with people to get them to relax.
Yeah.
And I really do love to hear everybody's story because they've all got one. We just have to ask.
Yeah, that is very true. Number 4, what was your first job and what did you like or dislike about it?
Oh, wow. I had 2 first jobs that were simultaneously. One was a rug store that was on South Boulevard here in Charlotte.
Okay.
It did not last long.
All right.
Like many rug stores, they come and go.
Okay.
That was really weird. The other one was the girl that I went to high school with. She got me a job at the Limited in Charlotte.
Okay.
And so that was an all-women's store. I guess it still is. And I was a stock boy in the back. And so getting to be around a lot of pretty girls in high school was not a bad thing.
Yeah, there you go. All right, and then number 5, what show on Netflix do you binge watch?
Oh, man, I had just finished watching Mad Men. And I'm actually very sad that it ended, and I was blown away by the ending. I think I'm one of the few that really love the ending.
Okay.
Because can I give part of it away?
I don't care.
Who cares? It was at the end, He is what he is. He is an advertising man, and he realized that.
Yeah.
And he is in lotus position and for yoga, and a smile comes across his face, and then the screen goes dark, and they cut to a commercial, and it's the Coke commercial from the 70s. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. And you're like, through and through, he's an advertising guy.
I tried to watch that show, and I watched a couple of episodes, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, I just couldn't get into it.
I had the same thing. I think it took me like 5 episodes. A friend at work said, you're going to love it. And it's like, if it would have been a book, it would have been tossed.
Sure, yeah.
But I was like, all right, I've pretty much seen everything else right now. So I started watching that, and I was like, this is good. It got really good, actually.
Got better. Yeah. I've had that recommendation from several people, but I've just never dedicated the time to it. It's funny. There's several series like that on Netflix that you start talking to people about, and they're like, well, just avoid the first or second episode. Like, don't even worry about those. You got to start at number 2 or 3. And it's like, what?
Now, have you seen Bosch on Amazon Prime?
No.
Okay, that's a really good. It's a cop show.
Okay.
Have you seen True Detective?
No.
Oh, man.
I don't. Yeah.
But skip season 2 of True Detective.
All right, cool. Hey, you made it through rapid fire. Congratulations. We'll give you a score of 863. So, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
There's really no reference to what that means, but that's where we're at. Really, thank you for coming on today, taking time out of your schedule, and just kind of chat a little bit. So, tell us a little bit about where you are right now and what you're doing on a daily basis.
So, I work for an organization here in Charlotte. It's a digital marketing firm and ad agency called Arthur Elliott.
Okay.
And I'm one of the account executives there, and I manage a lot of our Napa business.
Okay.
Which is basically, you go out and you are the marketing agency for a small business.
Sure.
For a lot of small businesses.
Okay.
And it is really awesome because they're the backbone of Middle America. They're the backbone of Main Street. You've got these people that own 1 shop, 2 shops. They employ 10, 15 people maybe per store.
Sure.
And so you get to help the underdog.
Yeah.
And man, that's a lot of power that you feel or you're emboldened to help that person succeed.
I want to circle back around to that in just a few minutes because I think one of our core audience demographics is small business owners.
Yeah.
And so I think we can really dive into some practical, tactical things to say, hey, these are some things as you're thinking through getting prepped for marketing, these are some things you need to be prepared for. Before we get to that, I did want to circle back to some of your other, I guess, endeavors that have brought you up to this point because as we were kind of talking and getting to know each other, the understanding of how to train and deal with people is, I would imagine, been very beneficial in getting the most out of working with those types of clients because you can't just go in there and force feed things down their throat. You have to understand how to get to know them, I guess, to cater to exactly what they're trying to accomplish.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. It is. It's about human connection.
Yeah.
It's about for me, in any business, if you have curiosity, that will take you a long way.
Yeah.
It is a respect for people and to be curious about that person.
Yeah.
That's extremely authentic. If you don't have that, they'll smell that a mile away.
Sure.
And to me, it's to not go in there with solutions and answers.
Yeah. It's
to go in there with a curiosity. And if you can help them, that's great. Mm-hmm. But you have to have the courage to be able to tell them that you can't.
Sure.
And you'll be respected for that as well.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do, but it does. We've dealt with that on our end a couple of times. There were some projects that were just kind of a little more than what we could take on at the time, and we had to bow out of them during the estimating process, and caught a little flack for it on the process of bowing out of it. But we were much more comfortable not taking on more than we could handle at that time, and then it came back around full circle once we were able to actually be able to work on the project of that size. But it's much rather walk away from it before you have a really bad experience and then be able to improve on it in the future. But
it's also the long-term play and to not be manipulative about it. But if you realize that you're not necessarily the perfect fit for a business, they're going to have respect for you for being honest. And they're going to tell people that.
Yes.
They will tell people, they referred me to their competitor, or they referred me to someone else. And yes, we hate to lose business, just like you hate to lose business.
Yeah.
But we're in this for the long term.
Yeah.
This is the long play.
Yes.
And to me, it's the best way to go.
So in some of your previous endeavors, you've been really big into training. So
yes,
what are some core in small business? I think we've learned this time and time again as you're building a business, growing a business. Training is a huge component of it. If it's done well, then you can grow at a good pace. If it's done poorly, then you kind of have a lopsided house of cards, right? So what are some things that you learned on the aspect of training that really kind of sticks out to you? And you would say to small business owners, hey, these are some things that you really need to be thinking of as you're starting to grow.
Well, one, your training has to be engaging. It can't be boring. And you have to follow what people want. And we talk about now that in today's market, your attention span with Netflix and everything else is either 13 seconds or 3 hours.
Yeah.
You're either going to binge something all the way through, or it's going to be 3 seconds and I'm out of it.
Yeah.
So one was to develop relevant content that speaks to them and their voice. What else did I learn? I would say that you need to be authentic. You have to have the voice of the employee represented. You have to have the voice of the customer represented in training.
Okay.
And you need to have empathy as well. But you have to engage them when they are ready to learn. Because when they are ready to learn, that's an open willingness that says, I'm here.
Okay.
Versus saying, okay, we're gonna have a training session today at 8:30 a.m. I know you have a lot to do, sales calls, but we're gonna pull you all out of that and put you in this room, and we're gonna force feed you this train the trainer stuff.
Gotcha.
Then you're like, I'm checking my phone because I got a sales call I gotta make. You're not engaged.
Yeah, just
versus creating an environment where they're there and they're open and they're willing to receive that information.
Okay.
That makes a world of difference. And that's where online comes in.
Gotcha.
In my estimation, because when somebody logs on to an app or to a site on their computer, that means they're ready. They're open.
Okay, so what you're saying is instead of having an established time where you bring everybody in and kind of this is when we're going to train, having it almost self-service, so the modules are already there and you can go in and they can learn when they're ready to learn. Yeah,
and believe it or not, I learned this from one of the best in the world, which is Jeffrey Gitomer and at the time Brian Parsley.
Yeah.
So they taught me how to engage on those different platforms. And it was beneficial to me in the long run.
Just a reminder, you're listening to the Coffee Break Podcast. Also, we wanted to let you know that our team puts together a weekly blog post. You can find it at locdoc.net/blog. It's guaranteed to raise your IQ by 12 points or your money back. So it's pretty much a win-win. All right, back to the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting takeaway because it's a difficult thing. I know even from our world, in our business, to wrap our head around that because we want to have some instructional time for training.
Of course,
and it's a lot easier, I guess, to bring people in and set them down and say, all right, we're going to have training right now. The foresight to get it done ahead of time so that it can be online and available is a little more taxing, but it requires less upkeep in the long term. So it's that you're balancing of, okay, do I want to put the time in up front and it be settled and done, or do I want to kind of carry it along in small spurts?
Well, and there's different methods. I mean, you can engage. You've got a beautiful training room here, and you can definitely engage your employees in that method. If they know what's coming and you set the temperature, you set the mood the right way, and they know that it's going to be the same time every week or every month, and you've got something leading into it where they're relaxed, that's different.
Sure.
And I think you guys probably achieved that here from what I've seen.
Well, I follow that, but I think that there's a major value, and just kind of thinking through everything that you've just said to this point, a major value in having it also in a digital online format that either it's continual reference material, hey, I don't exactly remember, you gave me like 42 things to learn in 5 weeks, so how can I go back and reference that is a great resource as well.
Well, the one thing that I would caution any trainer or business leader to think about when you're in that environment, that person goes from being your employee to being your customer, because you have to persuade them. And in order to persuade, you need to inspire people.
Yeah.
And so that's, if you, in the training session, if you're in there and it's just, you're presenting from a PowerPoint and it's just kind of a puke and spray. I hate to be like that, but you need to have them engaged. You need to have them, throw in some, I want you to write this down now.
Yeah.
have somebody repeat something back. So you know they're all engaged. You want to get all their senses active.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good value-added point there because I think that's something that we miss out on a lot of time. It's just constantly feeding information, but having even if it's a document with kind of fill in the spaces type thing, it's creating I guess some type of an engagement.
Well, a lot of times too, as business leaders, we've got so many different things that are on our plate that we need to do.
Yeah.
And if you're the one that's leading the training, even the trainer, they've got other things that they're doing as well.
Sure.
And so sometimes they don't leave room to breathe. And what I mean by that is if you watch a stand-up comic, they'll tell the joke or the story, but they're leaving pauses in there because they know that's where the audience needs to get the joke and laugh.
Yeah.
And so when you're telling a story, or teaching, you need to have those pauses planned in and trained in that they can absorb it. They know that was a key point.
Yeah.
Versus just a rapid fire trying to jam it down their throat through a fire hose.
Yeah. Very
We used to
interesting.
call it the drip irrigation method with either in Train the Trainer or online was you get them little bits of information because people can only remember so much. And I think studies basically say after about a minute and a half to 3 minutes, people start to tune out.
Yeah, you got to kind of breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's switch gears back to the marketing thing because I'm very intrigued by some of the things that you were already talking about and leading up to. So in your current role, you're working with a lot of small businesses under a national brand. So
Correct.
there's a national brand connection, a directive there, but each independent business has the right, I guess, to go about their marketing in their own way as they see fit.
It's a little bit like that. So what you want to do is you want to take the national strategy and you want to localize it. You want to bring it to the hyper local level because what works in Peoria doesn't work in Charlotte versus San Diego.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different market segmentations.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you're speaking to the right customer and tailoring that message to that customer.
Makes sense. So that's a big component of localizing the account management because you've got to understand the local region that you're marketing to.
Yeah, of course. You need to understand, well, there's two things. You need to understand the boots on the ground mentality.
Yeah.
Like what's the culture like? What's the community like? Specifically with Napa, and they call the owners jobbers.
Okay.
Is the name for them. They're very active in their community because they know without the community, they don't have a business.
Sure.
And so most of them support and donate and are involved in the local community.
Gotcha.
So they in turn come back and support the business. And the funny thing that we learned about is people will write off millennials and the younger generations and saying they're cynical.
Yeah.
But they're not. If you're engaged in your community in an authentic way,
Yeah.
that younger generation is going to be there for you.
Most definitely. No, that's very, very intriguing. So with that, as you go in with these jobbers, and start talking over these strategies with them, how are you? Is this an information gathering and then trying to apply it? Are you helping to kind of coach them in a certain direction? Like, how does that typically? What are some of the hurdles that you're having to jump through? Navigating what maybe they want to communicate to their customer base versus what their consumer needs to hear?
It's all the above. You go in, and first of all, you're going to go in with your ears open.
Okay.
It's more of a discovery session. I wouldn't propose a solution in the first meeting ever because I want to go back and do my due diligence. I want to have all the information that I've gathered by asking questions and come up with a plan that I think and our team thinks that will benefit them the most. Now, ultimately, it's up to them. It's their business.
Sure.
They can say thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
Where you run into challenges is you'll have local communities that are in remote areas where technology is there, but it's just not as prevalent.
Yeah.
And when I mean prevalent, it's not as visual to people. It's there. People use it. I mean, most everybody has a smartphone. And so trying to explain how to advertise digitally is difficult for some seniors. And I mean that in the most positive way because what I respect about them is how do you marry the digital aspect of that to the handshake aspect of that?
Yeah.
Because they grew up in their business where you look a man or woman in the eyes and you shake their hand, and that's business. So how do you bring that human element into the digital world?
Yeah.
And so that's what we really try to do is just show them this isn't some movie that you watched on TV with Tom Cruise, and it's the futuristic thing. Digital is just, it's a space, it's a method for advertising, and it's created by people, for people.
Well, I'm processing that. It's an interesting component, and it seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of folks that we've been talking to lately about humanizing that business, humanizing that local business, because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, and maybe I'm off. My perspective is everything was very humanized back in the day because it was that handshake, it was that in-person type conversation, and then we shifted over to all digital. It was all kind of very transactional.
Yeah.
And now we're like, oh, how do we get back to that? We've already gone to digital. Now we've got to go back and humanize the digital again. And so, but the really cool thing is that you have the ability to use the digital to show the human side of a business.
See, that's perfect. And I love the ask. One, I love cause marketing if it's done the right way. Two,
define cause marketing.
It would be if I've got a company, an owner, a brand that is involved in the local community.
Okay.
I want to highlight that in an authentic way that doesn't cheapen what they're doing.
Sure.
I want to let the community know the story. So I'm going to tell it not in a salesy way or in an ad way, but more in an informational way.
Okay.
To let them know this is kind of what's happening and why they support them, and not mention anything about product.
Got it.
That way they make that connection.
Okay.
And what was the second point?
I don't know. Sorry, I cut you off on your second point.
No, that's all right.
You said cause cause marketing.
Yes.
Or a cause
marketing, and then I completely spaced on what the next thing was.
No worries. So
this is why I need more coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Humanizing using that digital to humanize.
So I know what I was going to say, and it was right now with so many data points. And this is a good thing and a bad thing. When we look back on the last election, all those data points were used in a negative way.
Yeah.
And people, they always get scared about the digital and all these. I mean, people have, 5,000, 10,000 data points on them just from being online.
Yeah.
But if you do the marketing the right way, you're serving ads to people that want that information anyway.
Sure.
And it's not in a way that's overbearing, over the top. It's something they're interested in anyway. Mm-hmm. And honestly, nobody clicks on a banner ad anymore.
Yeah.
It is an awareness campaign. If they do click on it, I think it's 0.1%.
Yeah.
And anything above that is like above the gold standard.
It's interesting. I'll give you maybe an interesting perspective as well. I don't really go on websites.
No.
It's information that I'm receiving through Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Now, maybe it might launch me into an embedded page, but it's rare outside of a Google search that I'm actually going to a web page to even click on a banner ad.
Now, we just had this conversation this morning.
Okay.
How likely are you to click on an ad that's in Instagram? So if it comes through and it's a shoe. Have you bought shoes? Birds?
You're saying all this stuff, and I'm going to get all these ads for it on my device.
Sorry.
I've not. I don't think I've purchased any shoes. I did purchase some coffee products.
Okay.
A pour over setup that was an Instagram, because my Instagram feed is essentially coffee and locks. So
yeah. Well, and a lot of people, believe it or not, this is the discussion we had this morning at our office, which was more people are apt to click on an Instagram ad than anything that's on Facebook, anything that's on a website.
Interesting.
And so it's
why
I don't necessarily have there's stats behind that, but I think the comfortable with.
Do they know that Instagram is Facebook?
Yes, they know, especially now that Facebook has redone their logo and it pops up when you log into Instagram.
I'm not going to click on these Facebook ads. They're creepy.
Yeah.
Instagram.
But I think it's just because the nature of the scroll.
Yeah.
And it's the image, it's the quick hit or a video.
Yeah.
That's not, it's muted, which you can do, set up. And so it's just like, okay, I like that. I'll click on that.
Yeah.
And you don't leave the app. You're still in the app unless you decide, take me to the browser.
Yeah.
So a lot of people stay in that, walled environment, that walled garden.
But kind of getting back to that component of it, the banner ad is obviously. I mean, I guess I'm sure there's still a huge market for it. I'm
Yes,
just thinking
there is.
from my personal digital, footprint, it's very rare outside of our online web apps that we have that aren't obviously don't have banner ads on them, but it's very rare that I'm just kind of browsing through internet.
But when you see somebody, like for me, it's I wear these shirts, and they're like surfer shirts, but they're golf shirts.
Okay.
And I won't name the brand, but I get ads for them everywhere that I am.
Okay.
Within apps,
Yeah.
on websites, Wall Street Journal,
Yeah.
you name it. What it is when people go and they think they see this banner ad, that's not the only place this is being served. So it's omni-channel.
Sure.
So if I'm a brand, I'm going to go everywhere where my client base is,
Yeah.
or where my prospects are going to live.
Mm-hmm.
So when people see something, they think, why would anybody click on that? Well, chances are that's just one component of the strategy.
Yeah.
It's in the paper, it's digital, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Coffee Break Podcast. If this information has been helpful to you, or you just really kind of like our theme song, can you help us out by rating us on whatever app you're using? And if you get really fancy, how about sharing a screenshot on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn? Okay, enough of all this. Let's get back to the conversation.
So
Tying it all back to a central point.
Yes.
So we're running an ad currently in association with protected keys that we're really focused on right now. And so it's just a quick little 30-second animated video.
Yeah.
And drawing attention to that process. And we're running it on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And then it obviously drives back to a page on our website that we're trying to give information on. But it's just that grab point. It's just that, hey, is this something that draws your attention? Is this something that you're interested in? And then bringing it back in. But we're trying to do that across the board. So like the theory would be that maybe you have that conversation with one of our team members out in the field, but then it also gets served up to you in your Facebook feed. Mm-hmm. And so now you're like, hey, well, hold on a second. What is this? It's all kind of tying together.
now, are you capturing all that data, all those metrics?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Why not?
Well, no, I mean, this is where the marketing, this is where the magic happens. And as we talked about before we went on the show, that there's a podcast called Math and Magic.
Yep.
And math and magic, those terms go back to the era of Mad Men.
Yeah.
And the math is the analytics, the data of it, and the magic is the creative.
Yeah.
And you have to have both of those, and they work together. A lot of times, they both will drive each other.
Yeah.
But analytics alone just doesn't work without the creative. And I love taking, okay, does this work?
Sure.
Does this creative work? And let's see, and then run, because especially with Facebook, I mean, you can run two parallel ads and optimize it and see which one kind of works.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful to see.
You know, with all this conversation, we're just going to get fed
Yeah, I know.
Facebook ads for Facebook ads.
I'm waiting for it to pop up in my watch as we sit here and talk.
It's crazy. I've got, I was looking at a hotel the other week, a specific hotel, and I booked a room there, but I keep getting ads on all of my Facebook and Instagram. It's like, hey, guys, I've already gotten this taken care of. You don't have to continue to advertise to me.
So let me ask you a question. Based on the marketing, like, what's the most, let's go to email marketing. What's the most annoying thing you think about email marketing? Like, what bugs you the most? When you log into whatever email, whether it's work or personal, what kind of ad, like what kind of email just drives you crazy?
There's not a specific email that drives me crazy. It's the overwhelming frequency of it. So, you know, if there's a company that sends an email every single day, it's just like, I'm done, you know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting too, and email marketing is becoming more and more complicated from my perspective, because I use Gmail, and I have all of my mail categorized. So I don't even really see, I might just see a header pop up on my watch, but I don't really see the email because it puts it in a separate tab that I go check every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat.
Yeah.
Or the ones in Gmail that you're like, you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
That you're forced to look at. No, it's like, the only reason I say that's because, you know, I'm struggling with that now. I get overwhelmed. And so I think I decided to, I'm just going to start up another Gmail account, and anytime I'm on the web looking for stuff, I'm going to be logged in under that. They're going to give that mail, because I want to do a test. Like, give myself a different name, and I want to see how far that goes down the chain of where my information has been sold to.
So there's a couple interesting things on that, and from our perspective, and I'd be interested to hear what you're seeing as well, but from the email marketing side of things, we have, if you were to look at engagement across the board, and you say Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and email marketing, in that order, reversed order, email marketing has the highest rate of engagement, LinkedIn is the second, and then we start tearing down from there. Actually, it would be like Facebook and then Instagram and then Twitter. But what is that the typical norm? How are you guys seeing that from an engagement standpoint? Is email? Are you guys seeing email marketing like going out the door, or is it ramping back up?
No, especially for my clientele, which is Napa, their email marketing is huge. It's Napa Rewards.
Okay.
And they don't overuse it.
Okay.
And it's done in a way that really sticks with the brand. Some of it's kind of tongue-in-cheek with the brand.
Okay.
But you're dealing with a lot of people that are do-it-yourselfers and gearheads.
Yeah.
Mechanics, weekend mechanics. So you have a lot of leeway to talk to them. And they're looking at parts. They're looking at stuff they need.
Sure.
So that they want that message. It's not like another clothing ad. It's not,
So are you guys seeing it more like, hey, here's what's on sale, here's a coupon type thing, or is it like here's a tip and trick type?
All the above.
Okay.
A lot of it's so Napa know-how for everyone, which is very inclusive.
Okay.
So we do it for you. If you don't know how to do it, or we will let you do it.
Interesting.
So you're serving two markets there.
Another question for you: influencer marketing. Are you seeing that happening with a brand type like Napa?
I was gonna say you see it, but you see it through people that are like paid drivers.
Okay.
And so Ron Capps is on the staff, paid by Napa, and he is a funny car driver.
Okay.
And he is probably the most engaged person I've ever seen that loves the brand. That he was at the Super Bowl. He's a 49ers fan.
Okay.
And he got to use the big Parabellum mics. I think
Okay.
it's Parabellum is what it's called.
Oh, the big I
where you can hear all the voices.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing his Napa hat.
Gotcha.
And he's not paid to do that. So you've got like the NASCAR driver. He does his events. That's awesome. He's great at what he does. Elliot. But somebody like Ron Capps, he's very approachable. He's always talking about the brand. That's an influencer that it's amazing.
I the reason I'm asking that question is because the influencer market and marketing is just so intriguing to me. I'm trying to figure out some of the different components of it. It's an easy lift when it's an event, or if it's apparel, or a bag or something like that, right? A brand like Napa, I would see that more of a mechanic that's doing the do-it-yourself type tips and tricks online all the time.
Well, then you're getting more to not necessarily Instagram unless it's really short, but then you're getting into the YouTube, where somebody's showing you, hey, this is how you change your oil,
and I got all these parts from Napa.
That kind of stuff. We're seeing a little bit of a trend move towards not individuals but to communities. And so start engaging with communities that are around like auto parts, or that are around I wouldn't know for your industry unless it would be safety or privacy, but for us a lot of it is it's part of the American dream, a car.
Sure.
And I think maybe not as much as it used to be, but when you turn 16 and you got your license, that was freedom. That was the road, man. Give me the keys and I am out of here. And I think today's market's just a little bit differently. I know there's kids out there today that are, why do I want to drive? My parents are going to drive me. Why do I need to get my license? That was not me.
No, it was counting down the days. Fun story, and we've given Napa a lot of airtime today, but
sorry,
my grandfather back in the day used to call it the NAPA store.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Until I was probably, I don't even know, 10 or 11 years old, I thought it was the NAPA store. That's what it was referred to.
Now, where are you from?
North Carolina.
Okay. That's interesting. That's I went to college in Boone, North Carolina, and we had a Napa store there, and I just remember every time I'd come back to college, right there on the right side of the road, Napa. First thing I saw coming into town was Napa.
He must not have been really big on acronyms, so just going to call the letters out.
There you go.
Can you copy this key? That's a question we get asked about 3,422 times a year. And how can you actually be sure that the person who asked that question is supposed to get a copy of that key? Well, we think you should always know who can copy your keys to your business and your home, because it could be your neighbor, an old employee, a contractor, or even worse, your mother-in-law. At Loc-Doc Security, we believe in protected key systems, so you always know who has a copy of your key. To find out more, visit Loc-Doc.net or stop by our Charlotte location. Loc-Doc Security, helping you protect your people and your property.
So we were talking about Google data before, or just data points in general, that essentially if you're carrying a smartphone, you've most likely activated all this, and so you're being tracked. It was I saw a video, or it was an article on Wired that I was reading earlier today, and this guy had discovered an interesting component of data points. He was, I think he had seen like some gathering. I don't know if it was a protest or some celebration or parade or something like that, but it was showing essentially on Google Maps a traffic jam in that area, but there were 0 cars. So it was just showing that there was heavy traffic in the area. And so he was testing the theory, and so he was able to convince 99 people. This is the part of the story that's very interesting. He was able to convince 99 people to let him borrow their cell phones. I would never do that, but he had all of their phones, and he put them in a little red wagon, and he just was walking down the street in like remote places that didn't have any traffic, and he was just walking down the street with this little red wagon with these 99 cell phones in there, and then they were showing the live Google data image at the same time, and it was just showing essentially a traffic jam everywhere he went, but he was the only guy in the street.
That's awesome. He just told Google they have a flaw in their system.
Well, I guess the whole kind of point of his article was you're constantly feeding data out, even if you don't think you are, and it can be used for really good, but it can also be hacked or tweaked. So you throw a bunch of people in an intersection with a phone, and now there's a traffic jam, and it's going to start rerouting people. And that's one of the most interesting things. Those are the positive things that data can give you, right? So if it shows that there's a bunch of people there, it can reroute traffic. But where is it going to reroute you? It's based off of where those paid data points are going to send you.
Well, here, I'll tell you, it's something that's really cool. I don't necessarily like the term they use for it because it's called predatory marketing.
Why would you not like that?
I just like to, we're going to leverage this we're going to leverage it to your advantage.
Okay.
So we can it's basically search and keyword on steroids.
Okay.
And so you're going to take like your customer, say you've got a competitor and they've got a website and they have a similar product to yours. And it could be, let's just call it superhero lock. So it's competitor.com/superhero lock. We're going to make that whole URL a keyword.
Okay.
So anytime somebody goes to that and they access that keyword, that URL, we're going to serve them an ad for Loc-Doc.
Gotcha.
For that specific product.
Yeah.
And so we can go through all those URLs of the competition.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they access that and hit it, they're getting ads for you.
Gotcha.
Or whatever we decide it's going to be. And to me, I love that aspect.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff keeps me up at night or wakes me up at 4 a.m. thinking about how can I use it.
The competitor side of it is I would say the very interesting component, but really where the deep dive for me on that stuff is starting to think, okay, what are other things other websites that they would be going to, not competitors, but in a related sense. So, and I can't think of a good idea off the top of my head, but essentially maybe they're searching for a realtor to buy or sell their home.
Okay, so if they're searching for a realtor and they're on a realtor website, okay, that's a search field.
Yeah.
So you can track that as well.
Yeah.
So if you, whatever keywords that you have that you're tracking, and they're putting that in any kind of search field, you've got that data that now you can serve ads to.
Well, so for us in the commercial real estate market, it would be anybody that is looking for office space, anybody that is looking for a broker. Those would be the type of people that would be an ideal customer for us, and they are going to be in the market to use our services at some point in the given future because they're looking for a complementary type service.
We do something that's we call it dwell time. And so you may have a customer. I have a customer, an auto parts dealer, and they may need new employees.
Okay.
Or they want to have a deep bench to pull from. And so what we can do is we can run dwell time ads. And so we can digital fence around their competitors.
Okay.
And so if that device has been in that space for 4 days in a row, We know they work there.
Yeah.
So now we can start to serve them ads. Hey, come work for company X.
Yeah.
Come work for company Y. To me, that's useful.
Yeah.
That's a great thing because you never know. Like, you never know that one day when that person feels, you know what? I want to work for somebody that's going to value who I am and the skill set that I have, and that ad hits them at the right time.
Yeah.
And it's the right person, the right time mentality.
Yeah.
That what we talked about with training.
Yeah.
It's the same mentality that they're there to receive that information. So the constant 24/7 of the right ads at the right time, it works. You know, I used the analogy to a friend of mine. I said, you know, you can go the digital route, and it does work. Or you can pay somebody minimum wage to sit out in front of your store, dress like the Statue of Liberty, and swing a sign around 5 days a week. Now, which is going to be more beneficial to you, and which can you track?
Sure.
Are you going to go out there and track horns and waves?
Yeah.
You know, so to me, the digital way is, to quote whatever that movie is with, The Way of the Future, Howard Hughes.
Is that the
The
one
Aviator?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and it's the future. It's the wave of the future. Now I'm getting crazy. Sorry.
All right. So real quick, just kind of to kind of bring this to a close, how are you taking that data right now and trying to help customers turn that into actual sales? The data that we've been talking about, how are you actually taking that and turning it into something real for the clients?
So right now you're going to look here's the challenge. When all this data comes back, again, it's just data. And so there are no insights involved. That takes some doing. To me, when you can get the data to have, I know I'm kind of going all over the place with this, but when you can distill it down into evidence, it's got insight built into it.
Gotcha.
So if I can go to them and show them real time what happened because of ad A, B, or C, that they actually converted and went into a store, went to their website, did actions that we said ahead of time that this is what we expect, and they hit those triggers, then we've won. But again, we talk about people. Everything goes back to people. No matter how far down the digital train we go, eventually you have to interact with a person. And so our job is to get them to the front door, but also have the marketing in place that when they get in that front door, that they're going to want to buy the product. Then the training comes in, as you mentioned, hopefully that the person that owns the business, those front-facing people that are facing the client, they do their job correctly.
Sure. So I guess we'll leave on kind of one last thing, because this has been our experience dealing with anybody that has come in to try to put any advertising package together for us or try to sell us some advertising or marketing plan or anything like that. They've typically come in with a predetermined plan based off of what they think is best for our business without understanding exactly what it is that we do. And for us, we get lumped into the locksmith category, and so they come in and they sit and they go, hey, we can help get people here so you can unlock their cars. And we're like, well, that's not going to do anything for us because we don't unlock anybody's cars. And then it's trying to bridge this gap between what they're trying to force you or trying to sell you on this marketing strategy versus where you think you actually need to be. So my question to that is, as a little bit of setup, is what should people, as small business owners that are saying, hey, this is something I really need to get involved with, or this is something I really am interested in, what are some advice or some questions that they need to be asking a marketing company that would help to get them to an actual successful plan versus just what they're trying to sell them a bag of goods?
I think the first thing to do is have your antennas up for the amount of questions and the quality of questions that person is asking you.
Okay.
And to look at them to see if they're actually listening. And I know in today's market, you can read on LinkedIn, you can read on Inc. and Forbes, wherever you want to go, they're teaching you listening skills, how to look like you're paying attention. Well, you know what? We all see through that. You know, people do see through that.
Yeah.
And you just need to know that they're engaged. You can feel when somebody's engaged and they're asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And if they come back with a solution to you in that meeting, chances are they don't know your business.
Sure.
Or I wouldn't want to do business with them because they're looking at it as churn and burn.
Yeah.
and they want to move on to the next thing. They've got you pegged in a market that says, you're in this square box.
Yeah.
I want to put you in here. I've talked to people in our home office, and they've got a marketing plan that's already put together that I can give you.
Sure.
I just don't think that's right. I think that you get to know, one, your objectives. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
What do you want to grow? Where do you want to be? Well, 5 years is ridiculous, but where do you want to be 12 months from now? Where do you want to be 18 months from now? And then let's work together to build there. And you got to have, if they're not willing to set up touch points along the way, to say, okay, is this working? Then that's another red flag. You need to have those touch points built in.
Sure.
To say, bring the data back. Let's deep dive.
Gotcha.
What's working? What do we need to tweak?
I think it's interesting that approach, and it's something that we all have to be mindful of, because at the end of the day, a lot of small business owners, when they get into that conversation, I don't know if it's intimidated, confused, or whatever, that they're just like, I don't want to make a decision because I don't really, we're just not seeing eye to eye. So anytime that you talk about marketing with a small business owner, I don't say anytime, that's a definitive. Oftentimes when you talk about marketing with a small business owner, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of cautionary tales. So finding that right person that you can work with and that you can kind of have that mutual connection and that trust built is obviously going to be a huge benefit. But it is something that happens regularly, that small business owners are almost paralyzed by making a decision because they just don't really know what's right.
Well, and I completely understand that. And, as we talked about earlier, that a former guest you had likes to say, at the end of the day, people do business with people.
Yeah.
And people they like.
Yep.
And it does come down to that. And I would tell a small business owner to not be afraid to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Stop. Explain this to me. That's part of your job when you're coming to me to present this material and want to be, my vendor.
Sure.
To explain this to me so I understand it.
Yeah.
And not make me feel like an idiot for asking the question.
Sure.
And you should be comfortable on the other side of the table as the marketer to distill it down so they understand it. You need to know your audience.
Yeah.
You need to speak your audience's language. So, if they're high-tech people, you got to speak to them in that language.
Yeah.
I always go back to the book, or the 6 Languages of Love.
Sure.
So if you know that book, and then you know that if you're speaking somebody's love language, it connects.
Yeah.
And so we used to teach this back in the days with Brian Parsley, as we mentioned earlier, that if you're going into a sales room and your sales technique is quote unquote German, and you are talking to someone that's in the C-suite, but they receive in French, they're going to send you to someone that receives in German.
Yeah.
So you
or
got
send you out the door.
Exactly, pretty quick. So that's a convoluted way of saying you got to know the person you're going to meet with. So do your due diligence. And to end on that, when we talk about presentations and pitches and having those meetings, don't go into it as a presentation.
Yeah.
Kind of use the Steve Jobs format of, one, rehearse. Rehearse until your tongue is tired and your brain aches. So when you go in, everything is internalized and you're having that conversation where you're not thinking about the next question you're going to ask, because then you're ignoring what they're telling you.
Sure. That
everything's internalized. You can have that information, as we keep talking about earlier, you're open to receive.
Yeah.
And they're open to listen.
Yeah. So I said this 4 times, the last thing that I was going to ask you, but kind of in that closing aspect of trying to understand exactly what it is, do you have any reference material that you would say, hey, if somebody is interested in marketing, is it a book, a blog, a website, or maybe a podcast or something that you would say, hey, you probably would want to check this out just so that you can be more aware of some things?
Yeah. There are 2 authors, and their names escape me now, but the name of the book is called Positioning.
Okay.
It's kind of the marketer's Bible. It's an older book, but man, it is worth it. And Confessions of an Admin by David Ogilvy.
Okay.
And one book that I just read that I absolutely adore and love, it's, I can't think of the name of it. It's The Yellow Tux.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the book, it's a guy that owns a baseball team down in Savannah.
The Savannah Bananas.
The Savannah Bananas. So that name came from a contest.
Yes.
And he wears a yellow tux to the stadium. So if you want to know marketing and how crazy you can get with it, read that book. It's an easy read. It's fun.
Yeah.
It gives you great little nuggets that you're like, man, I want to try that. Or it'll inspire you to think of your own, which is even better.
Awesome. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
You can reach me at Capture Happy on Instagram and Twitter, or Michael at arthurelliott.com.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been a blast.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, Michael, thank you very much for joining us for the conversation today. It's been a blast. I've learned a lot from this conversation, and I'm really excited about what's coming up in the future. We've got tons of great podcasts and great topics to discuss with you. So in order for you to get the latest, make sure you subscribe. Go to Loc-Doc.net/podcast. There's new icons actually that you can click on and subscribe to all of the podcast platforms that we're linked up with. So make sure you go check that out, get subscribed. There's a new episode every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and we share that out live on Facebook and YouTube, and then it's available for audio download on all of the podcast platforms. So make sure you check that out. There's topics just like this and many others on business leadership, management. We've got one on the Enneagram that we recently had a conversation about. There's lots of valuable information. Go check it out. Make sure you subscribe to get all the latest. These podcasts, they're available in audio form and video form as well. As mentioned on Facebook and YouTube, search it up, LOCDOCINC, and you can see all of the videos there, and then subscribe for the audio version. And we look forward to seeing you next time right here on the Coffee Break Podcast.